This week on the WriterCon podcast.
I would say ignore most, if not all, the advice you've been given.
Welcome to WriterCon, a gathering place for writers to share their knowledge about writing and the writing world. Do you have a desire to write? Every successful writer started with their first book. All it takes is determination and knowledge, and WriterCon can provide that knowledge. Your hosts are #1 national best-selling writer William Bernhardt, author of more than 60 books, including The Superman Wars, and Lara Bernhardt, award-winning author of the Wantland Files series and Shadow of the Taj.
Thank you, Jesse Ulrich. Hey there, writers. Thanks for joining us. As this is being released, we are only 6 days away from the release of my new nonfiction book, The Superman Wars. This, of course, is the story of Superman's originator, Jerry Siegel, the 11th grader from Cleveland who came up with the idea, refined it, spent years trying to get it published, and then sadly spent years trying to reclaim it after both the credit of the character and his credit for the character was taken from him by greed and dubious business practices leading to almost 70 years of litigation. But this book is not primarily about lawsuits. I know that would not be appealing. It's about people. It's about artists and creators and this ongoing problem we have of not supporting the creators who make our lives so much richer. Or to put it differently, this book is not just about a comic book character. It's about how we can make the world a better place for creatives in the future. Lara, you're one of, I think, only 3 people that I know have actually read the book at this point. Do you remember any part that surprised you or stuck with you?
So many, but for one thing, what you just mentioned, how very young these boys were when they first came up with this idea, brilliant. Yeah. And then also, I was shocked by how they were more or less scammed into giving away their rights.
I should explain that she's saying
you can argue that they signed it. I mean, I get that you can argue that, but you can argue that anybody who pulls a fast one, like if you're not aware of what it is that you're doing, I don't think that's fair. No,
they were young. Jerry had lost his father when he was 17. He had no one to advise him, and he made a mistake.
He got scammed. We talked about in the last episode. He got scammed.
Yeah. At least there was no AI involved.
Yeah, there was no AI.
I was going to explain that Lara's talking about
good old-fashioned human-powered scam.
The guys, meaning Jerry Siegel, who came up with the idea and wrote it, but as soon as he had it, he ran 9 blocks across the way to his friend Joe Shuster's house. Joe was an artist and, of course, drew Superman originally. So that's why the credits say Siegel and Shuster. Jesse, I really tried to get Star Trek into this book somewhere, but it just didn't fit. I don't know. Have you ever done comic books, or does that interest you at all?
It did. For some reason, like actually reading physical comics just like wasn't part of my nerdy teenage upbringing. Like, but
How did you miss that?
I also came of age with the great Batman animated series and the X-Men cartoons, and so I was getting comic book stories delivered to me, and so I didn't have to go out necessarily. But I have read some of the classic, like big sort of graphic novel types, like The Watchmen and the whatnot. Like I've read those.
Good stuff. But none of which would exist had it not been for Jerry Siegel, not only creating the first superhero, but giving the sales spike that this brand new industry, the comic book, needed.
I have read the great fiction book that's sort of based off of their story, The Adventures of Cavalier and Clay. A great book.
Great book.
So good.
And many people think Cavalier and Clay are based on Shuster and Siegel, and there is a lot of some things different too, but a lot of commonality. That's a great novel. All right. Today, our interview is with David L. Robbins, who was a theater major and a lawyer who somehow gravitated into writing. You'll hear all about it, mostly on military subjects. He's written many novels, including his first book, War of the Rats, a huge bestseller set during a critical World War II battle between Germany and Russia. He also helped launch the Mighty Pen Project, an intensive writing program for Virginia's military veterans and their families. We will talk to him about all that and more, but first, the news. News story number 1. Guess how many books were published last year? 4 million.
Oof.
Yes, I'm not kidding. The total number of books published in the United States alone in 2025 with ISB numbers jumped over 32% over the previous year to more than 4 million books. The increase was led, obviously, by self-published books, which soared up 38% to more than 3.5 million from the 2.5 million the previous year. So if there's 3.5 million self-published, that only leaves about 500,000 or so that were not. And also bear in mind that only includes books with ISBN numbers, which is important because a lot of people who are simply uploading their own work to Amazon don't bother to get ISBN numbers because you don't need them on Amazon. This information comes from Bowker Services. Their product marketing manager, Andrew Kovic, said, quote, "The fact that every aspect of the publishing process, once available only through traditional publishers, can now be obtained from the self-publishing service providers at a comparable level of quality." And that's likely the key driver in this huge soar in output. So it's pretty dramatic. Lara, does this help you understand why it's so tough to get any attention for anybody's book?
Absolutely. I had heard before that we were reaching about 2 million books a year.
Well, it probably was last year.
Jumped to 4 million. It's mind-boggling, but also I think probably partly influenced by some of the AI slop that we've been
how many of those are AI slop books?
Yeah, how many?
Well, we don't know. Yeah, because those probably don't get ISBN numbers on Amazon.
That probably is a key,
maybe not.
Factor.
We've talked about an author who was self-publishing, and if even if you are presenting it as serious work and trying to present it as though it was written, you might well get an ISBN. You might present it and market it as though it were written. You might not want to have it look that amateurish. So hard to know.
Jesse, I know you read a lot, and sounds of it like you get through books more quickly than I do. How do you discover new authors in the midst of this deluge of stuff?
Combination of word of mouth from friends, sort of Reddit book searches. I'm trying to think of any of the sort of book videos that have been shown to me, if I actually listen to any of them. Because no, they're usually showing me books I've already read. And a lot of, probably honestly put together by AI, but like occasionally when I just Google for different genres of books to see if I've read everything that's supposed to be like in the, the canon of those categories. Sometimes I'm like, there's some science fiction book that I've never read that is supposed to be important. And so like, I'll read it that way. And then, it's really word of mouth. And occasionally, very occasionally, just randomly on Amazon, I will see something that intrigues me and I will read the description. I'll be like, okay, I'll give it a shot.
Good for you. Have you read Project Hail Mary?
I have read Project Hail Mary. I've read it right before the movie came out.
Right before. Oh, wow. Pretty faithful, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was great. The book, the guy knows how to write a guy stranded in something science novels.
Solving science problems.
He's got his lane, and his lane is he's very good at that. And the movie was incredible. And, of course, the Rocky puppet was amazing. So, if you're going to give someone a hilarious sidekick, make sure they're funny. So,
good advice. All right. News story number 2, which also serves to remind me that the publishing world today is nothing like what it was when I started. Book Talk now has its own bestseller list. Yes, there is an official Book Talk bestseller chart set to launch later this year in the UK. It's already debuted in Germany. It's going to be a monthly rundown of the most popular titles on TikTok. Now, you might be wondering, since people don't buy things on TikTok, how do you generally, I think you can actually now, but how do they know? So this top 20 chart will be compiled by Nielsen IQ book data, which, don't ask me how, is going to identify titles generating significant engagement on TikTok and then rank them according to presumed sales volume. TikTok will provide data on engagement, while a group called Media Control will apply an algorithm, of course, weighted more towards book sales than engagement to try and come up with some idea of how books are actually selling. As everybody listening probably already knows, Book Talk is a community of readers who share recommendations on TikTok, and it's become a huge, powerful force in publishing during the last few years. A lot of authors, particularly in the romance and fantasy genres, owe a great deal of their popularity to Book Talk, like Sarah J. Maas and Colleen Hoover and the aforementioned Rebecca Yarros and a bunch of others. Lara, do you think this chart will be at all useful or instructive? I mean, Book Talk obviously prefers some genres over others, and I would guess it probably prefers one age demographic over others.
I was going to mention age in my response. Will this be instructive for me? Probably not. Right. For our youngest daughter, more so, definitely. I think the people who are paying attention to Book Talk and getting their book recommendations from there and hearing about new releases in genres that they want to read will find this helpful and instructive, although they may have already found it by that point. If it's already gaining popularity on TikTok, do they need a list? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, it's
I'm
like
not
Jesse
their target
was saying.
audience.
He's looking for a list, and if you're reading romantasy and you're Gen Z, I don't know. Jesse, you're probably going to start going to this to figure out what to read next, right?
Well, I like the idea, like there's a difference between engagement and purchasing. And so it's nice that they're actually trying to track like whether people are is it TikTok that's directing people to, Rebecca Yarros and Colleen Hoover, or is it, since people are talking about it on TikTok, it is spreading via word of mouth? It'd be interesting to see where the engagement's actually happening. So, cause you can make TikTok videos about anything. And there are TikTok videos about everything. Doesn't mean people are buying it. So
if Ralph can make a video of me in a superhero suit flying with my cat, who also has a cape on my shoulder, to promote they should both be holding. Wars.
Are they both holding copies of your book in that video? They should be.
The book is in there somewhere. And if he can do that, then you can promote anything. All right. No craft corner this time. Our interview ran a little long, but it will be back next time. So stay tuned and we'll be right back at you. But for now, let's talk to David L. Robbins. David L. Robbins, welcome to the podcast.
It is a pleasure to be here.
All right, here's our usual first question. If you could offer writers one piece of advice, what would it be?
I have to refine that question, if you don't mind, because there's a spectrum of writers. There's writers who are accomplished, who always want to get better, could perhaps benefit from some advice. And then there's writers who are aspiring, they're students or they're conferees. They haven't published yet. They're still honing their craft. So can you narrow that? Or do you
Let's say the last one. Let's say the latter, the aspiring people. What would you say?
I would say ignore most, if not all, the advice you've been given. Truly. I rarely hear good advice from at conferences and from writing teachers. I hear write what you know, which I think is just abhorrent. because why write something? Why not be excited about learning something? Why not wander away from what you know and capture that excitement and get it on the page? They say, I've heard, grab me in the first page. And I'm like, no, don't knock on my door and grab me. Introduce yourself, acclimate me to you and you to me, right? Pull out a cheese plate, get a charcuterie, see if you like a dark beer or a white wine, introduce yourself. And then we'll play Wii tennis and talk about our past lives. But I would tell aspiring writers to study the craft.
Yeah.
That the craft itself, that writing is not unlike ballet or piano or sculpture or painting. Somehow or another, Bill, it's become legend that writing is reliant upon inspiration and talent and imagination and some kind of natural gift. And I think that is true at a different level. But I mean, I can teach you right now to dance ballet badly, but I could teach you. I could teach you to play piano
guarantee.
Badly. Yeah. What I'm saying is, but after 2 hours, you would know a plie from position 2. You would know I can teach you the piano, 8 whites, 5 blacks. Now, talent and inspiration come into play later, but you rarely run into writing mentors who say to beginning writers, learn the craft. This is, of course, heretical, but I say that your story is the least important part of that. I say what you're writing about is the absolute least important thing. And if you'll allow me 30 more seconds, because I am, as you're probably guessing, a teacher, imagine a painter, and he has I'll put my hand in because it's video, a palette right here. And on this palette, there are colors. And here's the canvas over there. And this is just the story. This is the telling of the story. This is just paint. That's the painting. They're not the same. And so much advice is what you hear. And when I talk to aspiring writers, is they focus on their plot and they focus on their characters and they focus on, I'm like, no, focus on the craft. Focus on the telling of any story, from the quotidian to the majestic, because you can learn to paint in any color. You can learn to paint in black and white, red, green, and all the basics. You can learn to paint in any medium. Doesn't matter what the paint is. What matters is your ability to handle the brush. Yeah. Then, when you have an understanding of passive voice and profound and absolute truths and POV and dynamics and pace and the integration of setting with character, and many, many, many geodesic dome facets, right? Once you have an understanding of them, then pay attention to your plot. Then pay attention. But deciding who your character is without the ability to understand how that character integrates into the setting, or knowing your ending, a big surprise ending, without knowing how to create the proper slope to get there.
Sure.
That's the advice I would give. I would say most of the writing teachers and conference mentors that I see give elementary advice. I've heard them say things like, well, you got to grab me.
You need to come to WriterCon, because that would not be true.
There is one reason why I have not come, and that is because I have not been invited.
Now we're getting to the heart of it.
Just to wrap that up, you'll hear things like, you got to grab me on the first page, and they won't be able to articulate how and what grab me means, right? But
you understand the problem, because today attention spans are short, and people can download a new book to their iPad in 5 seconds. So if you're not entertaining people, you may lose them, right?
I'm not advocating not entertaining. I'm advocating know what the terms mean. Okay. I'm not saying don't grab. I'm saying know how. Know what grab means. And grab them with what? Grab them with intrigue, grab them with action, grab them with violence, grab them with empathy, grab them with sex, grab them with what? And then grab them how. It's not just grab.
Right.
There's a whole lot of technique inside that phrase that most of the people who say it don't know how to execute it. They'll say show, don't tell. And I'll say why. I know why, but they'll say because it's better. And I'll say why. And they can't articulate.
You've worn a bunch of hats. You just mentioned being a teacher, but you were a theater major, if I'm not mistaken, and you were a lawyer for a little while. How'd you end up getting started writing?
I have often described my entire professional career and all my iterations as for instance, I was a lawyer, and I call law the great catch basin of the unfocused overachiever. I grew up, I knew I was smart, right? I knew I wanted to be on one side of the law. I wanted to be a good guy. I wanted to help. I didn't know how. I wasn't going to be able to stay on medicine, and I don't have a brain for engineering and things. And so you go to law school. But when you're a performative kid like me, and you get in college and the pretty girls are at the theater department, you don't, you go. And next thing you know, you're having fun, you're in plays, and I did a lot of writing when I was as a theater major. So I did a lot of play writing. And I tell you, if you want to learn, could I back up and give that advice? Just dawned on me.
You got 30 seconds, go.
Okay, go. I would say write a play. And the reason why I would say write a play is because plays are not dependent on interiority. If it doesn't happen on stage or gets said on page, it don't happen. And that's the most powerful way to write, is write through action and dialogue, and back away from these long narrative passages, these long interior passages, telling the reader that he was angry, she was sad, her face was a mask of horror. Learn to write a play. And learn dialogue and action that integrate into character, and then take that to your prose. It's magnificent.
That's a good piece of advice. Now, you seem to be drawn to military subjects. Your first book, I think, was War of the Rats, right? Which was a big hit. Tell us about that.
Complete mistake. Should never have.
Other than the massive sales, you mean? It was a big mistake.
No, here's what happened. And I was very, very fortunate to become a good friend of his, Tom Robbins, who passed away last year. And Tom and I met many, many years ago. We're not related.
Yeah.
But
that was my next question.
Years ago, he was up for an award that I was up for an award. We met for the same award. He won, as he should always. And we got to be friends. It was the last name that kind of linked us. And we got to be close pals. And we talked at least every 2 weeks for 15 years. And I reviewed his books for the Washington Review of Books and things. And he always gave me blurbs. And as a child, as a kid, as a young person aspiring to do this, I wanted to be Tom. I wanted to write fabulous things like he did. But I wrote a book called War of the Rats because it was a love story. It took place at the Battle of Stalingrad with 1 million men trying to kill 1 million men, and there in the middle of it all was
Germany and Russia,
each other,
World War II.
And I wrote this book because in real life, Vasily Zaitsev fell for Tanya Chernova, a female sniper played by Rachel Weisz in the movie. And I was moved by the love story, but I did such a good job apparently researching and telling the story of snipers that the military people, the history people went crazy, and they said, "Oh my God, this is the definitive Stalingrad story." I'm like, no, it's a love story. He said, "This is the definitive sniper story." It's a love story. And then what happens, and you know this, that when you're a beginning writer and the publishing industry says, "Wow," and then they say, "Do that again," you go, "Okay." You don't say, "But I want to write crazy things."
Yeah.
Go, okay. So, 18 books later, all of them invading Europe or something. I became an historical writer, and I'm proud to say that I did well. I mean, I was mentioned well, and people were compared to my work, and I was in a pretty good cohort, and was pleased to be on the New York Times list a couple times. I openly brag about that.
Might as well.
Well, but no, it was pretty accidental. It did a lot of stuff, that first book, and then the next couple did the same ish, and then they don't want to hear from you unless you're writing those.
Yeah,
that's true.
Just to be clear for the people listening, the movie you referenced with Rachel Weisz, that's Enemy at the Gates, right?
Yep.
Yeah, which stems from War of the Rats in some way that only you could explain, probably.
Well, I don't want to get hives.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Let's switch gears. You've started several nonprofits, but tell us about the Mighty Pen Project.
I live, and thank you for bringing this up, because this is really the force of my life these days. These works. I live a mile from the Virginia War Memorial, which is the largest and I think inarguably the best war memorial in any of the 50 states. Every state has one. The state of Virginia has the third highest per capita veteran population and the highest per ratio of veterans in America. We're very big veterans. We have a lot of bases. Norfolk is the largest naval base in the United States, et cetera. And I've been teaching writing at the university level while I've been writing my own work, but I've also been a university professor. And I saw a newspaper article that Fordham University was giving veterans a weekend writing retreat. And that to me seemed weak beer for both, that you could teach anybody anything in a weekend, much less give veterans what they deserve in a weekend. I thought, well, that just seems uncommittal on both ends. So I boogied up to the War Memorial. Well, they knew me because of my work. And I said, hey, how about if I start a university type writing class for veterans? And they said, sure. And I said, I just want to host it here. So I ran it for 3 years as a nonprofit with boards and raising funds and things. And then people at the War Memorial started taking the class. And then they came to me and said, we want you to close your nonprofit and let us make this a program of the War Memorial, which I said yes to. And here we are like 9 years later. We run 3 classes. We have one-act plays. We have an archive. If you Google VCU Mighty Pen, you'll go to an archive of over 200 stories that I've been working on and editing and posting. I only post one of every 10 or 15 stories. I only post the ones that describe something about the military that I want to be archival, because imagine, Bill, if there was this written archive of Korea or World War II or the Civil War, the Revolution. So as you say, once it's online, it's in perpetuity. This will be a magnificent research tool because the people I'm getting are a lot of the women were the first to do what they did in a cockpit, in a helicopter, behind a gun, behind a yoke on a jet. I have the first female chaplain in combat in American military history, except for some women in the Civil War in the Union. But she just said, I'm going to go chase Saddam. And she disobeyed orders, got on a truck and crossed into combat lines. And she's one of my repeat writers. I've had every description. I've got guys that have dropped bombs on Hanoi. I got cats from Afghanistan, Iraq, Beirut, everything. A guy flew a pilot in the Cuban Missile Crisis. And so we've developed an archive, the class. The thing about the class is that as it started out by me just to be something that I could do for veterans, come from a veterans family, and my brother was in Vietnam, and I guess I should have gone but didn't, and I don't hide that. And then over the years, I began to notice that they were getting catharsis and healing from this, and they would say things to me like, well, I haven't told my therapist, and I haven't told my wife, and I've told my friends, but I told you, on the page. Mm-hmm. And I was hearing this with really regularity. It dawned on me that this class was also therapeutic for them. And on being unqualified to be a therapist, I began to become intentional about it. So I did my own sort of research, and I began to be very conscious that in the class of guiding them towards therapy or towards healing, towards whatever they wanted without getting caught at it. Because if I say this is therapy, now, then why would they come? They can just go to therapy.
Sure.
What it is a writing class. And here's the trick. When they're ready, when they decide that hard day is something that they have the skills and the confidence and the community to write about, they do and they will. But nobody in the class, I tell them on night 1, I say, I'm not the Grim Reaper. I'm not here to collect your stories of woe. I'm here to teach you to write well. And I'm going to be just unfalsely proud I can teach an anvil to write. And so I say, I'm going to teach you to tell your stories. You choose what to build with those tools. And inevitably, if they have that burdensome story somewhere in their heart, they'll tell it. And then I stay out of the way. Emotionally, I stay out of the way. And the class embraces them and gives them the group and gives them the support and the normalizing for their trauma. And I give them a piece of art. I say, here's how you build a piece of art out of that. And recently, within the past year, I'm very proud to say that Virginia Commonwealth University, the university I teach at, VCU, has written a grant received a grant to study our work with the Mighty Pen as a way of understanding therapeutic writing. I think a great many therapists prescribe therapeutic writing, but I'm not sure that there's a science that binds it all. I'm not sure they know exactly how to manipulate that tool, what they're looking for, when to use it. Our goal is to study what we do at the Mighty Pen, recreate it, and then create a conference and a faculty, and actually have an institute at VCU for the study of trauma-informed writing. All rooted in the Mighty Pen, and I'm humbled beyond words but that's actually happening. And
yeah, that's great work.
And there's money, and I'm a schmuck in the middle.
Yeah.
That's fabulous. Amazing. Amazing work there. So can you describe for us when you're writing, when you're working on your books, what is your writing process like? Are you a pantser or a plotter? How do you find your time to work on your books?
Can you plot your pants?
No, it's either or. It's really not, but
one or the other.
It's your process, and I find that I get a different answer to this question from every author, which I think is wonderful because it lets our aspiring writers know that there's no one thing that results in a good book.
Exactly right. I have described it as baseball writing, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. So think of a home run. Somebody throws a spheroid at another person holding a cudgel, and the person with the cudgel hits the spheroid a prescribed distance in the air, and it goes over a barrier. And when that happens, that person now touches things we call bases, first, second, third, and then back what we call home. Not until all of these conditions precedent have met do we have a home run. Now, it's not delegable and it's not mutable. Every home run is that. But everybody who hits a home run hits it in a different situation. Mickey Mantle would just kind of jog with his head down because he's a humble Oklahoma boy. There you are. Sammy Sosa would do a Catholic catechism between home and first, and Barry Bonds would growl in some steroidal rage at the pitcher, but they all did the same thing. So my process is to hybridize extemporaneity with a locked down home run. Once I tell my characters what they're going to do, I don't brook any argument, right? You're going to do that, but I let them do it the way they see fit. So I run alongside my character who just hit a home run. I go, ooh, you hit a home run. How do you feel? How'd that feel in your hands? And what's the situation? Oh, it's a tie ball game and you just won the game, or you're a rookie and it's your first at bat. And but I don't negotiate the home run. And some writers will say, well, my plot ran away with me and my character ran away with me. Like, well, that means your character was not solid enough. So I let my characters alone. I listen for their voices, but they damn well do what I tell them to. How they do it is up to them, if that helps.
Yeah, that sounds really on the nose. David, are you working on anything now? What next between two covers can we see with your name on it?
Well, my hopes are, so I had this long and very gratifying, very frustrating career writing historical novels. But you guys know, people of a certain age, we're all still the children that come in when our moms call us. We are. And that kind of never goes away. And the kid that I wanted to be was the kid that read Skinny Legs and All, and Another Roadside Attraction, and my favorite Jitterbug Perfume, and Vonnegut, and I read Clavel, and I read all the great historical ones too. But man, you give me The Hobbit, or give me even Alice in Wonderland and Gulliver, and the Swift things. And I wanted to be Tom. I always wanted to be a social commentarist through satire. Tom's talking about faith and mankind's good and bad angels, and even while he's making you laugh, or you're amazed at the pyrotechnics of the language. And I aspire to that, but I didn't get to do it. And so I'm kind of writing my Tom book.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Good for you.
I think I can capsulize the plot real fast.
Okay.
So
do you want to give it away? It's up to you.
And I'll probably end up giving it away one day. But there are over 200 flood myths through history. Only a very few major cultures didn't have a flood myth, and they were all ones that were born very deep inland. But everybody from the Egyptians and the Mesopotamians, because the Mesopotamian flood myth is Gilgamesh, but the Semitic flood myth is Noah, and they're the same flood myth. And so there's 200 of them throughout time, and they all have two things in common. One, a deity or deities got sick and tired of us, and two, hit the reset button, and that reset button was a flood. And throughout history, there's that myth is there. So I thought the only culture that really has the ability to destroy land life on this planet is us. And we got three ways to do it. Obviously warfare and weaponry, obviously a disease and pestilence and the things we design in labs, and obviously climate change. So I'm literally writing the flood myth for our culture.
Fantastic.
And my protagonists are three animals walking to Noah's Ark.
Well, I can't wait to read that one.
I can't wait to finish it.
All right. David, thanks so much for being on the podcast. Really appreciate you being here today.
You're very welcome. It's been a pleasure. And those are great questions. And I hope this has been useful for your audience. Thank you.
Me too. Thank you. See you soon, I hope. Just a few parting words. First of all, of course, I have to put in another plug for my book, The Superman Wars. I don't know, perhaps you've been thinking, this looks interesting, but I don't want to pre-order. Why pay for something I can't have yet? I get it. I do the same thing.
So relatable. No
I put it in my cart and wait till they can actually ship it. But if you order now, you can have it first thing on Tuesday. And if you're listening to this April 28th, or later, you've got no excuse. So give yourself a little present. And let's face it, a little present for me too, since I've worked on this book for about 2 years. Remember, this book is about a writer, Jerry Siegel, just like you, which is why I wanted to write his story and why I hope you'll be interested in reading it. Also remember that the WriterCon small group retreat is July 15 through 19, and our annual conference this year is Labor Day weekend, September 4th through 7th in Oklahoma City. You can get more information about all those programs at our website, writercon.com. Until next time, keep writing, and remember, you cannot fail if you refuse to quit. See you next time.